Hey everybody, welcome to Pale in Comparison, a proud member of the Doof Network. In this podcast, my sister uses her knowledge of the Otherverse to take a look at Pact, Wildbow's least protagonistic work, and I try to not give away any spoilers. I'm Jenny, and Malia convinced me to read Worm.
I'm Malia, and Jenny convinced me to read everything else. This episode, we are covering Signature, chapters 8.1 and 8.2. Before we get into that, however, I'd like to issue a spoiler warning. This podcast is filled with pale spoilers. If you don't know whether Jasmine tries to take Lucy's place as First Witch of Kennet and don't want us to tell you, stop now, read Pale, and come back to this podcast. As for Pact, there'll be full spoilers through the chapters we are covering.
All right, we're at a new arc.
Woo!
All right. So, I feel like now that you've read these two chapters, you probably have another meaning for Signature that you may not have had before. But what does Signature mean, Malia?
So I googled some stuff. Yeah, so the like main one is, it's you signing your name. But it's like usually your name written in a distinctive way as a form of identification. In legal purposes, like for something to be a signature legally, it's any sort of mark that you make or that you adopt. You don't even have to actually make the mark. You can just say, yep, that's my signature. And you have to have an intent to be bound by the thing that you're signing or by something that is logically attached to the thing that you're signing. Signatures are kind of nuts. But it's kind of, you have to like have the present intention of authenticating that document or adopting that document or whatever. And you can sign checks, you can sign letters, you can sign contracts, you can sign lots of shit. There's an important evidentiary purpose for signatures, right? You can print out whatever the fuck you want, but the signature is supposed to say, yes, this person saw it and like agreed to it. Like if you just have copies of an unsigned whatever, like I could make that on my computer right now. So that's part of why it's so important in law, and why we give so much weight to it is because how the fuck else are we supposed to know?
Yeah, you know how much weight my husband gives to his fucking signature?
Not a lot.
Every time at the grocery store or when we're eating out, I swear he just draws a winky face. Like a winky smiley face.
I love that. I thought you were going to say like a line or whatever. Because that is the signature, right?
It's so weird because I'm like, the waitress is gonna see you writing a winky face and think that you're like into it. Sometimes he changes it to just a smiley face in that case, okay. But like, I mean, it's just like every time he's like, he just thinks it's hilarious because he gets a reaction from me too.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a signature. As long as it's a mark, it's distinctive. It's also a pattern, right? Like he uses that as his signature regularly.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah. Another aspect of signature is to like make something your own, kind of a thing. Like people have a signature style or a signature look, which is the same sort of thing. But that's a thing. There's also like key signatures or time signatures in music. Don't know what that could mean or if that relates to the story at all. There's also something about printing. They'll put something at the bottom of pages to help them figure out how to bind things right or something in the printing process. I don't fucking know. And apparently, at least in North America, it said the part of the medical, like if you have a prescription from a doctor and like you read the thing where it's like take once a day in the morning, that's the signature. Which is funny because the doctor, I think, also has to sign it. So
definitely has to sign it. Yes. Yeah. Most important ones are triplicates, or the ones for narcotics. Like those are pretty fucking strict. Otherwise, like
they have to sign it like 3 times or something.
I don't think so. That's a great question. I just know that people called it a triplicate. I never actually saw what it looked like myself. So maybe they do have to sign it a couple times.
Or a bunch of copies or something.
But I just know that they'd call it a triplicate. And I remember that stuck in my head because it's kind of a funny name to me.
Yeah.
The triplicate.
Yeah,
I don't know. I guess I could Google that. I mean, it must be something like in trees. In threes. Trees too, since it's
trees, bruh.
Probably made of paper. Yeah. Trees, bruh. Also, maybe it's just like a shorthand at our hospital. I don't know. But oh, that's not good. I like just wrote triplicate prescription, and like one of the things is like that came up was like, where can I buy triplicate prescription pads in Texas?
No,
guys, don't Google that. Don't Google. That's not cool. You'll get arrested and it won't be a fun time to go to federal prison. But all right, I'm just gonna give that up for now. We're just gonna move on.
Cool. Well, so yeah, as far as what signature might mean in the context of the story, like before I read these chapters, I was thinking about contracts. Whenever I think about pact, I think about contracts and demons and like how are we gonna get fucked. And now I get to think about Faerie and how we're gonna get fucked. It's great. I'm listening through our old episodes to slowly fill out the prediction tracker. And earlier today, I got to like 6.5, 6.6, I think. And I'm literally like, oh, it's like right before Rose summons Midge. And I'm like, oh, maybe she'll summon, a demon, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, oh, well, it'd be Jenny. Okay, sorry. I say something about being able to summon a fairy, and Jenny's like, can you summon fairies? And I was like, I don't know, but I think it would be worse for them to work with a fairy than to work with a demon. And Jenny was like, what the fuck? Check your priorities. And then the next episode, when Maggie shows up, and she's acting all weird, and I'm like, oh, maybe there's like a goblin or something like in her head, like doing stuff or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, maybe it's Patrick. And Jenny was like, what the fuck? And I was like, what? And I didn't get it. And I hate myself because I didn't mean it like that. But
that was really funny. It was so good. So good. Yeah.
This was all shocking. Yeah, so obviously signature in terms of stealing Maggie's name, stealing her, Mark stealing her signature, and adopting it as his own.
I know, when you said that, I was like, what the fuck? And everyone else is like, wow.
I should trust.
I have to say, Malia, more. some people have said some pretty good things about my poker face. Like, so.
Because I remember you, in my brain, it was almost like you were like, that's ridiculous. What the fuck are you talking about? And I was like,
That's great. That's exactly what I was trying to make it sound like. So that's perfect.
You're right. That is stupid. But yeah, it makes me want to reread Pact. This is one of the things that people say about the Wheel of Time too, is that when you're done with the Wheel of Time, you reread the Wheel of Time, because the Wheel of Time makes no fucking sense. This makes a lot more sense, but I'm just like, fuck, now I have to read every scene with Maggie in it and Patrick in it for this whole
be like, oh. Yeah. Because then you might actually be like, oh, she is kind of acting weird.
Yeah. I just thought Maggie was weird.
I mean, she's not that weird. Or it's a different type of weird. I mean, like now in retrospect, can you look back and be like, she did kind of know a little bit more than she should have.
So many things.
Yeah, right?
The thing that really got me was, so I'm also listening to Deep Impact, and I think she says that Isadora is like not that much of a sphinx as far as she can tell, and then Isadora doesn't eat her. And I think I called that out and Elliot called that out as like, that's weird, maybe Isadora's distracted. And now I'm like, what the fuck is happening with Isadora? She's not a sphinx.
Oh, that's so great. All right, I've got a long chapter summary.
Yes.
This time, so I'm gonna try to. I'll just start reading it because it's kind of long. But all right, Buttsack the goblin sneaks into a high school and tries to fuck with everyone, which is kind of a nice way of saying what he's doing, honestly. But is caught and bound by Maggie. She runs into Lola Duchamp, who calls her a murderer and convinces her to come to a meeting later. At the meeting, all the junior practitioners attempt to create an alliance with Maggie. She tentatively agrees, stating that it needs to be in writing. And then we see Maggie give a blood offering to Molly's echo, which seems to be pretty routine. Maggie later tells Elspeth, one of the junior practitioners, that she'll look at the contract after school. This is in a later date. She has dinner with her dads at home after school, and it's a fucking terrible dinner. It sounds really gross. She gets an email from Blake about the Toronto situation and decides that she just needs to go with the contract, even though she feels bad for Blake. Her dads take her to her favorite restaurant, which is very potato themed, where she runs into Patrick, whatever. He tricks her and takes her name. What do you think of these chapters, Malia?
I knew that Blake's life never stopped, right? Like, I knew that Blake's life was going to just keep ramping up and there'd always be like some like, whatever. But then Blake stopped existing. And I was like, we're going to get some chill. We're going to get some like catch up. We're going to get some like rounding out of like, hey, this is where everyone's at. You know, like this is where people are at. And we are getting there. But turns out it's just like absolutely fucking wild. Like, yep, okay. I understand more how Faerie are scary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, part of me was a little bit like, because you were very much like, what's up with Maggie? And I was like, I don't know, she's literally fine. And like, I was like, maybe there's something a little bit Fae about her or something. Maybe she's possessed. Like, I was just like, And so I'm a little bit embarrassed for not.
You shouldn't be embarrassed.
But also,
I mean, it's one of those things that's like in retrospect, it's like, oh, that makes total sense. But like, I mean, you shouldn't be embarrassed about not guessing that. You're not a fucking like mind reader.
Yeah. I just feel bad for the girl with the checkered scarf. And also reading the girl with the checkered scarf felt like deja vu. Maybe it's because that's how Blake thinks of her in his first dream. I don't remember if that is how he thinks of her, but maybe that's why it felt deja vu-y.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll start by seeing the goblin, Buttsack, sneaking into a high school, trying to fuck with everyone, but being caught and bound by Maggie.
So I thought that I had been played again. That Wildbow was like, there's gonna be Maggie chapters, and then it was like Buttsack for like a long time, and I was just like, is this not gonna be Maggie chapter? And then it was. So that was fun. But I liked this. It almost was like a little mini interlude within a big chapter. It feels like Pact is just gonna like do what it wants, kind of. And that's exciting. I really don't like Buttsack, and then I started like getting all pale reader and being like, but what about society? And then I was like, yeah, but I really fucking hate Buttsack.
Yeah, like he's really fucking terrible.
He's so bad. But also, yeah, I also feel like I'm not sure if this would have come on as strong if I hadn't read Pale, but the whole goblins are fairy like is so strong in these chapters. But I don't know if that's just because of Toadswallow's whole theory and the, you know, that being a weird thing. Because I didn't catch it as much. I didn't get that Wildbow was hammering it at home as hard or why that was important as much the first time I read it. And the second time I read it, I was like, Maggie, you have all the signs.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can explain to me the whole Buttsack turned into the wind thing. Do you remember?
Buttsack turned into the wind. I might have to look back.
Well, so it's Scuzzwick's trick where he like licks himself all over and makes himself bleed, and then he like lets his arms move in the wind and like woo, like sweeps into the school. And it says like he had to like hide before he materialized fully. And I was like, what the fuck is happening? And we just moved past it.
That kind of reminds you of Glamour a little bit, huh?
Yeah. At first I was almost like, did you get Glamour? What the fuck?
Yeah, I mean, no. Like, I mean, I think it's not a coincidence that right after that they started talking about like Fae.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, things like this and how good he is at manipulating connections and stuff. I'm trying to understand how Buttsack compares to like the goblins I know from Pale, because I would say that he's probably weaker and smaller than Blunt Munch. He might be bigger than Toadswallow. But like, can all goblins like turn into the wind and like fuck with connections? And like, I mean, he does like brag about how he can like read paper and shit kind of later. Like he's more than your average goblin or whatever, I guess. But what the fuck? Seems like a lot. I don't know. I guess goblins in Pale are used as a like sneaky get into and out of places.
Yeah.
And that is what this is. So I don't know.
True.
But yeah, let's talk about Faerie and goblins and Buttsack. If I understood correctly, his name for Faerie is the Unfair Folk or something. But one of the stories about where goblins come from is that like humans cut off the parts they didn't like and they became fae, and the parts they didn't like became goblins.
The parts they did like became fae?
The parts they did not like. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Oh, stuff they didn't like is goblins. Yeah. And he says he doesn't like that version.
Right. I don't think he necessarily likes either version because it's either very human centric or it's we're just like Faerie and he hates Faerie because he's a goblin.
Fucking hates that. Yeah.
Yeah. But it feels very these are the same. Like, you know, opposite ends of the spectrum or whatever. But his Buttsack's whole thing seems to be like he's bored and he wants to see shit go down, which is what Faerie are, right? Like it doesn't feel like he's sneaking around to get money to be able to eat or whatever. Like it seems like he's doing this like literally just to fuck with people. Partly because he hates them and partly to see the drama that unfolds. And he also has this like weird sense of I don't know if retribution is the right word, but with the girl in the bathroom later who's diabetic, I think, thinking, if she still has friends in a week, I need to like do more shit and make her life worse kind of a thing. But I don't know. Sorry. Yeah. And now I'm just wondering, like, is this going to come into play a lot in this story? Is this just a theme of like boxes and labels aren't can be deceiving and not helpful? Now I want to see like a Faerie that's so bad that it's almost a demon, like, you know, the hyena or the thing that killed Minnie. Or like made Minnie's mind break or whatever.
You think that was bad enough to be a demon, or you don't think that was just normal goblin?
Oh, right. That was the whole thing where I was like, it's a demon because goblins aren't that bad. I still don't understand the like mind fuckiness of a goblin, but I mean, they can turn into wind. Like, I don't know. They can do whatever at this point. I am accepting that. But yeah, so we might get some Faerie. I mean, because it's like, if goblins are like demons, and if goblins are like Faerie, then like Faerie are like demons, and it's just this like weird big mishmashy circle of others that like individually.
You think all goblins are like demons? I'm confused.
No, but like they can be, right? Like the hyena got closer to being more demon-like, and that one thing that goblin that that Grandma Rose's classmates summon seemed demon adjacent. And Barbatorum, that's the one. She's like, maybe he's a goblin. I don't care. Moving on. It seems like they're all next to each other in certain ways, but like individually are very different.
Okay.
But yeah, I was impressed by his ability to manipulate connections so that people didn't notice him. He would kind of say like, oh, and I like, he wouldn't say it like that, but the implication of diverting people from being able to notice was kind of cool. The physical limitations the physical limitations about doors was really interesting. He can't touch things because metal, but he can like get around. And he goes in the bathroom and he's just he's so awful, right? Like he's like he wants to get into the girl's bathroom because and he like, you know, at first it's like, oh, he steals someone's wallet, and like that sucks a lot for that person, right? That's bad. But it's not like, I don't know, like swapping the tampons, like inconvenient, embarrassing, not like making someone stop eating because food is repellent, not lacing a girl's insulin with cocaine, not, you know, like not awful horrible things. And he seems to think a lot of all of these things as similar. I was just upset by him like breaking all of her pens in her bag. I'm like, that's just such a dick thing to do. And then he's like, and the way he feels so entitled also feels like kind of a Faerie thing. He feels angry at her that she didn't have something like coke or heroin or whatever in her bag so that he could have fun. God, he sucks so bad. But then the pale part of me is like,
yeah,
you know, he is like subjugated by society, and as an other, you know, he's like pushed out to the fringes, and he can't like blah blah blah, and like goblin society is like kind of toxic and needs to be, you know, reformed because the whole like big strong equals in charge. And if he ended up in Kennet, like it probably could have been fine. But also I hate this man. So.
I mean, if you're, because I know you've said like, I mean, I feel like you and I, we might just have slightly differing opinions just based on like which book we read first, and that's fair. Yeah. And I think my opinion has changed since I read Pale. But if you, I mean, because you've talked to me before and said like, you know, in some ways like, or I've heard people say like goblins are kind of like humans, or like, just depending on what's influenced them, kind of depends on how they behave, I guess. Like,
I think it's a factor, but
yeah, but like you can't use that as an excuse to be like, that's, you know, it's not really his fault that he cursed. Yeah, again, like he cursed a girl to where everyone thinks she has an eating disorder and she thinks all of her food is rotting. Like, or it's, you know, it's just really a product of society that made him lace the diabetics medication. And I mean, I feel like there's not an excuse for that.
Yeah, no, I don't think it is excusable. I do think that he likely hates humans in part because the seal places him like permanently below them. The way Rook hates the whole like concept of innocence, it creates these like stratifications where others are just very disenfranchised, but also yeah, like he fucking sucks and I hate him.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that there are goblins like the ones in Pale show that, like, he has no leg to stand on here. Like, he doesn't have to be like
that.
He
doesn't have to suck.
He doesn't have to fucking suck. When I was just reading Pact, I was like, well, yeah, he fucking sucks, but I guess all goblins are kind of like that because that's what this book had been showing me. So it was like, well, I mean, I guess they can't fucking help it, but they fucking suck. And then with Pale, it's like, oh, there's a bunch of these guys that are really sweet, and obviously they don't have to be like that. So, you know, so to me, this guy just,
he sucks.
Major fucking sucks. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I hate this. But he's in the bathroom and he's being horrible, and then, what's her name? Lola Duchamp walks in. Lola's a fun name.
More fun. The name's more fun than the person.
Yeah, I was thinking this was going to be Maggie, you know, when someone walks in, but it's not. I think the way she's described is really interesting. Like the bright green paint around her eyes, and all the piercings and stuff. Like, I think that's like eyeshadow, but I also like was like, is it like war paint? Like, now when I think of Lola Duchamp, I picture like bright neon, like green line just like across her whole eyes.
Well, I mean, in a sense, you could almost think of it as war paint, but in a very stylistic eyeshadow way because she's a Duchamp. She has to have a certain appearance, right?
Right. The part later where Maggie talks about how, you know, is this just an act of rebellion that will be stamped down? Will they find a man who wants a woman like this? Or, like, has she been told to be this way because there's a particular man in mind who wants this? And I was like, I fucking hate everything.
Yeah. It's like, who knows?
Like, if anything, I hope it's like the second one.
Mm-hmm.
It all sucks. Yeah. But yeah, this whole detente between the minor goblins and the families. I don't know if it's just I was gonna say the lairds. The Behames and the Duchamps. Or if it's more of them.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, on the one hand, it's like pretty convenient if you're a Duchamp, but on the other hand, like you can't do anything about the awful shit that they're doing, and that sucks, and I hate that.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm guessing this is us at the next part, by the way, right? So I was like,
oh no, I was just thinking about like him trying to look under the bathroom stalls and thinking about how he was maybe going to do that.
Got it. Sorry.
Yeah, she walks in and he starts thinking about how they can't fuck with each other.
Okay, never mind. Sorry about that. But Maggie does come to the rescue.
Yay. Before we talk about Maggie, though, Buttsack goes through this girl's fucking homework for like 7 paragraphs at least, and talks about how he can like manipulate the text and like change the things. And he's like, oh, I'll like take this person's name and put it over here. Like he literally is just like, ha 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 ha. And I just, nope, I didn't think, Maggie, you have your name, you have things in your bag with your writing and your name on them. Like, God, it was right there. It was right there. He spells it all out.
How are you supposed to think about that?
Just later. Later. You see a goblin. Faerie and goblin are the same. You see a goblin going through and like fucking with people. I mean, I think he physically wrote the other name down or whatever. But like you see, and you know, it takes a while. Like that's why Wildbow has this in here. Is because later you get to be like, fuck.
Well, yeah, but like, but why are you expecting like yourself to have? Because I mean, you said yourself, this shows you how dangerous Faerie are. Like, we've seen Guillemay. I mean, we've obviously seen some shit go down with the fairy courts and stuff in Pale. But like, I mean, if you really thought about it, you could have fucking tried, I guess. But like, I mean, I don't understand why you're giving yourself such a fucking hard time when I guarantee like 95% of the people who read this did not catch on to that either.
It was just reading back through it. It felt like there were so many breadcrumbs. Like probably how I'll feel when I read back.
Have you read a Wildbow story before, Malia?
Yes. It was right
Holy
there.
breadcrumbs, Batman.
The whole time.
It's like, yeah. Welcome to fucking parahumans and Otherverse. That's what these stories do.
Yeah.
Because he's fucking smart and he's good at writing.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you're dumb for not catching it.
No, yeah, it's right there.
It is. But it is a cool mirror, right? It's like...
Mm-hmm. They are the same, but they both suck. There we go.
They both suck.
Yeah.
And then Maggie saves the day, right?
Yeah.
All right, we're going to say nothing about that at all, I guess. Okay.
What?
Or you just paused, so I was like, I thought you were going to say something about Maggie coming in and doing the binding. You wrote, why does she have a chain with her? I don't know. But that's cool. We don't have to talk about that.
I write that late? Oh, I didn't write that. Okay. I was going to talk about it next. We're a mess today. It's fine.
That's okay. You just paused for a really long time, so I was like, all right, I guess we're just going to move on then. But
yeah, Maggie has a chain in the bathroom. She has 2 chains in her backpack, which is smart, especially since she's not going to class and she's just trying to practice and catch goblins. And yeah, she hangs them outside of the bathroom window, which is funny.
Yeah. And
I felt kind of bad for him, but also it was kind of good. A lot of torn feelings at this section and this story. It also felt, Maggie and Verona feel kind of similar to me. Like the whole like hanging a goblin outside of a window felt like a Verona-esque thing. I mean, part of it is like, I mean, the metal sucks, but on the other hand, like goblins like beat each other to shit all the time, and it's like fine.
Yeah.
So the physical part of this, I mean, like it's like the binding and it's like the metal that are, you know, the things that really suck. But also,
I mean, does it though?
Fair?
Like, what's the alternative to this?
For Buttsack.
Yeah, but like in the big picture, like
yeah, she doesn't really have the power to draw a circle and force him into like a weapon form, probably, which would be better. She also doesn't have the time. But I don't know, just like Verona is desperate for magical knowledge, but for like very different reasons, you know. I don't remember if I talked about this in Maggie's interlude. But she, like, Verona just loves the practice and thinks it's so cool and wants to like know everything she can, whereas Maggie is like desperate to learn as much as she can to try to prevent like the really awful shit from happening 2 more times, or at least like mitigate it as much as possible.
Yeah.
But because I could also see Lucy kind of doing this and being a little disgusted the whole time, and I could see Avery doing this as like, oh my god, like please stop. like in a way I could see all the Kenneteers doing this, and it was kind of funny.
That's fair. All right. So Maggie runs into Lola, who ends up calling her a murderer. but she doesn't convince Maggie to go to a meeting later. The Briar girl shows up at school, causes a little bit of a commotion, and seems to give Lola some kind of a message.
Yeah, this just sucks. It seems like Maggie really needs and wants friends. Because Lola is like, I need to talk to you. Let's walk to the office together or whatever. And she's like, are we going to be friends now? And Lola's just like, no. And I'm like, oh. And it's just so sad. And I fucking hate Lola.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing was, like, she, called out Maggie for killing Molly, but, like, Laird convinced her to. She says at one point, like, she was, like, the mediator between Laird and the goblins. Like, it was Laird who was doing the thing, and I don't know / understand if the other people get it. I mean, even if they do, they probably are like, well, it needed to be done, and you're the one who did it, so you suck. Because when she's like, the fact that it needed to be done doesn't diminish the ugliness of it at all. Like,
yeah,
fuck you. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I hate you.
Fuck off.
Yeah. But we learn a little bit about Maggie's ability to swear, and she didn't exactly give away her ability to swear. She did something, and it's not clear.
What do you mean?
Lola's like, something about, like, people who give up their ability to swear are dumb.
Oh.
And she's like, that's not exactly what I did.
Gotcha.
And either I totally missed it in her first interlude or whatever, or I just don't quite know what happened.
Yeah.
I think it's the second one. But yeah, we think more about Duchamps. I wonder what happens to Duchamp lesbians. I assume they're just, like, forced to marry men to have babies. Because why wouldn't they be?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And then the Briar girl shows up. I didn't realize the Briar girl was blonde. Was I supposed to know that? She's also super dramatic. Like, why is she here? Like, I don't know, talk to them later. Like, what's happening? I mean, it seems like they want this whole contract meeting thing to happen pretty soon. Because, like, yeah, they should just meet Maggie later. She doesn't have to talk to her while they're going to class.
Yeah.
But it seems like the Briar girl is here because there's going to be some sort of contract between the Briar girl, the Duchamps, the Behaims, and Maggie. I can't tell if it's, like, multilateral like that, or if it's everyone against Maggie kind of a thing. But it's interesting. But yeah, so Maggie uses, like, a goblin ear to try to listen, which was kind of cool and also gross because it was bleeding. And Lola, like, breaks that and, like, sends the principal on some sort of, like, wild goose chase. And Maggie is, like, so upset at, like, casually using that amount of power. And I'm like, lol.
Yeah.
That's, poor Maggie. It's not that much power, I don't think.
I mean, it doesn't feel like it because the Cannoteers have a whole town.
They just do whatever they want all the time.
So maybe this is a lot of power.
Yeah.
All matter of perspective.
Yeah. It just sucks. Yeah.
Okay. Next part.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So they have a junior practitioner meeting, basically. And they all attempt to form an alliance with Maggie. Not a very friendly one, but an alliance nevertheless. She basically says that she'll probably agree to it, but she needs to see it in writing first.
Which is smart. Good job, Maggie.
Mm-hmm.
God, the transition in the writing from, like, Blake's gonna come back and it'll all be great to, like, Thorburn probably isn't coming back was just, like, so painful and rude.
Yeah.
Also, there's more than 10 school-age Duchamps in Jacob's Bell. Like, that's a lot of women.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. Also, I was thinking about, like, do they all take their moms? Like, do the husbands take Duchamp as their name when they get married, or, like, do the kids just all get named Duchamp? Like, how does that?
Or just the girls?
Or
which it is. I know. Anyway.
Yeah. Also, I forgot about the whole, like, one of the Behaims voted for Maggie to get executed thing. And, like, fuck Gavin. Is Gavin sunglasses? I also need to go back and figure out who all these people were. But, like, fuck Gavin.
Dick move, bro.
Oh, and he's just like like his voice the whole time was that, and Lola's was yeah. I really want Penelope to be cool, and I can't tell if she's cool or if she sucks. Like, she's obviously not going to be perfect.
Yeah.
She's like, the next generation of practitioners. And I'm like, that's annoying, but also true, but also, I don't know. I can't decide.
But there's a peace offer.
Yes. So the deal is they'll leave Maggie alone and she'll leave them alone, and they'll help her get onto the town council eventually, and they'll give her like lessons and shit if people feel like giving her lessons, or some like goblins when the powerful ones come through that they don't have a deal with. And in exchange, Maggie has to like not fuck with the whole lordship thing. It's called a contested lordship that is going on right now. I'm a little confused. Is it Duchamp versus Behaim? Is it Duchamp and Behaim versus Johannes? No one's mentioned Johannes in the past few chapters, which is bothering me. I guess he lives on the other side of town. Yeah. The arranged marriage is obviously to try to like consolidate these families and like an alliance-y thing. But I'm wondering if it's like a compromise that like the baby will be the Lord eventually because they'll be Behaim and Duchamp. I can see the Duchamps being chill with being, married to the Lord or whatever, and not the Lord themselves. So I don't know. But yeah, so it's interesting that like, also I can't tell if Briar Girl didn't agree not to mess with the wedding, or if she was like, I don't need this in the agreement with, like, I don't need Maggie to agree with this. I don't care. But it was interesting that those two things were like...
Well, I think if she didn't care, they would have just added it anyway, maybe. But, like, if she was neutral about it.
Yeah, so she wants to fuck with this wedding?
Maybe.
I really need to learn more. I really want to learn more about these people in this wedding. But yeah, so... Right, and then she also can't help Blake / the Thorburns, I guess. And that makes her feel sad because she likes Blake and thinks he's great. But she's like, okay, so I shouldn't, like, this would be dumb if, you promise me these things, but you don't actually have any power. And then the parents are just like, lol, fuck that. And the little one is like, I talked to my dad and he said it was fine. Which is kind of cute. And then she's also like, I fucking hate all of you, and Blake is like a genuine human being, and he's just like a puppy that you tried to attack.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah.
She's great.
Accurate. Made me think about what Rose is. If Blake's a scruffy dog, is Rose like a feral cat?
Yeah. That's a good question. You think you think Rose is feral in that?
Maybe not feral, but she's not nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she's like, okay, I'll look at the contract and whatever.
Then Patrick makes a deal with her, basically.
I wonder why he was exiled. And like, again, which court he's exiled from. It was interesting later getting some of Yvonne, or whatever her name is, backstory in terms of like her dad fucked up, and so he was killed and she was exiled, and Keller like went with her. So I mean, it totally tracks that Faerie can be totally fucked for things they didn't do. And I'm wondering what was Patrick's thing.
Yeah.
God, this whole part is so painful because she keeps thinking about how, like, he's super hot, but like, I'm not gonna fall for it, and I'm never gonna like be into him, and I'm safe. There's never gonna be a relationship between us, and like, I'm learning how to do this and it'll all be fine. And I'm just like, it makes so much sense that like an incredibly attractive boy around your age is like smiling at you and like saying the things and flirting with you and like sharing secrets, and like, it's so like, I would not have been able to resist this. I don't think. At least like, I'd be kind of, at best, I think I'd be around the level Maggie was. Especially, she's so alone, and it just sucks so bad.
I know, it really does.
Yeah, so he's like, I won't go with you down there, and I'll hold on to this goblin if you let me teach you more glamour. Yay.
Pretty much, yeah. But then basically, Maggie goes on and gives Molly's Echo a blood offering, which is a weird twist.
Oh, this was so sad. Oh, this was so awful. And kind of great. I was thinking, like, will this be potentially useful in any way? I mean, Molly doesn't say anything. And we don't know how much of this is Molly. Like, is this more like June? Is this more like Evan? I'm not sure.
Evan's kind of an anomaly, isn't it?
I don't know. He died. I mean, he refused to move on. I could see Molly refusing to move on if she's gonna go to hell, but maybe she won't go to hell because she probably didn't fuck with any demons. I don't know. But it just seems like having Molly present in some form could be potentially useful to Rose or someone at some point soon. I'm not sure if Maggie's gonna stop doing this because she's not Maggie anymore. I don't know what's happening. And yeah, but this is really, really sad. It was the strong vibes of like kid going to parents' grave in cemetery to tell them about their day. So sad and awful. And it was interesting, this conflict of, do I want to side with someone like Laird, who's like such an awful piece of shit, or do I want to like side with Blake because I feel so guilty about what happened?
And then maybe the next day, I think.
A couple days.
Next day or a couple days, sometime soon after. Maggie's at the school. She's pondering about how the Fae have been fucking with people at the high school. And she tells one of the practitioners that she'll look at the contract after school. They kind of talk about Fae stuff.
Yeah. Faerie going to high school to stir up shit and not like going to class or whatever makes way more sense than vampires going to high school.
Mm-hmm.
Big part of it is like they don't have to go to class, the Faerie, whereas like I don't know that. I mean, in like
Malia's really into legacies.
Well, see, like at first TV I was thinking about Twilight, but then I was like, oh, also legacies. See, the thing about legacies is they are that age, right?
Yeah.
So it's appropriate for them to be in high school for the most part. Whereas in Twilight, they're like 107 years old or whatever. They don't fucking need to be there. Like, they should have, if they're like worried about the state being like, oh, you're truant children, like make birth certificates for them that say they're all like in their early 20s or whatever. Like, no one needs to be, what are you doing? Okay. Whereas like this, of course they love high school. It fucking sucks. So it's perfect for the Faerie.
Yeah. Fucking Twilight. Just like, I'm not gonna lie, like, because I think I saw the first Twilight movie and it was just like, I mean, it was shit. But basically, like, I remember seeing Robert Pattinson in like another movie later on and being like, wow, this guy's actually really handsome. Because like the fucking move, like Twilight just like made him so like washed out, and I don't know.
There was like a blue filter over that whole movie. It was weird.
Yeah, it was weird, and he just seemed so like broody, and he didn't have the maturity of like a however old he fucking was.
Sure.
So I guess it kind of like matched. Maybe that's why he was in high school.
Yeah. So you never read the books or anything?
No.
Okay.
I did not. I think I only saw the movie because like I don't even remember if the person I was with wanted to see it or if we were just like, fuck it, let's just watch this and then make fun of how crappy it seems. I mean, yeah, Robert Pattinson apparently is like only like shit talked to the movies, which I think is really funny.
I really want to watch the like director's commentary or whatever. I think he's one of the people on it, and he just like apparently it's hilarious. He's just like, this was stupid the whole time, which is great.
I mean, yeah,
I read all the books and I saw 3 of the movies, I think.
You were kind of into it, right?
Well, so Serena really was. And she really wanted me to read them. And so, I mean, I don't know if your friend's like, read this book, and you're like, okay, like you sort of do it, and you're kind of like, okay.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Edward was always creepy and sad. Like as a person, maybe he was fine. I think I just like hated Bella so much.
She was just like, you could literally like insert anybody's personality or like it's like she's just like generic.
Well,
like
just like
you could insert yourself into there and be like, yes, I get to like
she was
make
like
out with this
dull
geriatric vampire fuck or like this dog, you know, like
yeah, the werewolves were fun.
Yeah, it's just yeah.
And then it became a tradition to watch the Twilight movies for one of my friend's birthdays. They would come out around her birthday, and so it'd be a whole bunch of us, including a whole bunch of like teenage boys, just like fucking loving it for how
they did not
ridiculous
love
it was. No, they would just like yell and scream the whole time and like laugh really loud and like make great jokes, and it was great.
That's great. I mean, it's a fun movie to make fun of.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Twilight is the thing I'm about to say is horrifying. Twilight is, in a way, the Lord of the Rings.
What? What the fuck are you saying?
Space in
fuck
fantasy.
You. No. Fuck
so
off with
Lord
that
of the Rings
bullshit.
was genre defining, right? And it instilled a whole bunch of like tropes and customs that like the fantasy genre has continued to break down to this day.
You can't say that.
Twilight was like, what if vampires went to high school? And a whole bunch of people were like,
you cannot.
Yeah.
Tolkien, like, he fucking made a language. Like, he, like, you can't. I can't even say how much, like, that.
The quality of genre is not comparable, but she established a very popular and successful set of tropes.
She wrote, like, probably a fantasy that she had as, like, you know, a middle schooler, and she just wrote it down as some weird fanfic shit, and she actually got it published. And and comparing that to fucking Lord of the Rings, fuck off. That's not even comparable. Like comparable, however you pronounce that word. Yeah, fuck off with that. No, there's no way that that's okay. That is a controversial statement.
Legacies because of Stephenie Meyer, and I will always be grateful.
Fuck off.
Anyway.
No. Gosh, like, no. Could also argue that you have legacies because of Lord of the Rings, because they actually reference a lot of Lord of the Rings stuff in there.
That's true. Lizzie is a nerd.
Yes. But fucking hell, Malia. What a fucking hot take that is. I do not agree. Damn. That's fuck.
Yeah.
Lucky you didn't say that when Ben came into the room. He would have been like, what the fuck? I need to reevaluate some shit.
Yeah, Ben's read all the Twilight books.
Okay, I mean, that doesn't mean anything. Like, so what if he's read the Twilight books? Like, you say...
I'm gonna ask
if he agrees, okay, I'm just gonna put this on the record right now. If he agrees with you, it's because you're getting married and he doesn't want to rock the boat. That is what I'm saying.
Is this always... Wait, is it like... Does it sound weird? Anyway, would you agree with the statement?
Don't agree. Don't agree. It's bullshit.
Do agree. Would you agree with the statement that Twilight is like the Lord of the Rings?
No.
Space of the literary universe.
No.
He's thinking about it.
Don't go with your. You're trying to be a good fiance. Don't fall for this shit. You're gonna get married either way.
Ben says we would have to define some terms, and he can't commit.
Okay, see, that is a very diplomatic way of saying fuck off. Thank you, Ben. It's too soon to say. Okay. Yeah, anyway. No. Saying like Dracula, like his, a defining thing, like something that has defined vampires, like that. If you said that in Lord of the Rings, I'd be like, okay, that's fair, because fair enough. It was a defining work. Fucking Twilight. No, not all vampires glow with a misty dew.
Right. No, not all vampires glow with a misty dew. Not all elves are tall and skinny and like beautiful and shit.
Okay, but a lot more of them are now after Lord of the Rings. There are a lot of beautiful...
And there's a lot more stories about vampires in fucking high school after Twilight. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no. We're gonna have to fucking agree to disagree on this one, because that is a bunch of bullshit.
Okay.
That's some bullshit.
This could be a fun discussion question unless
Holy fuck. Yeah. What other hot takes about fucking Twilight and bullshit? Like, what kind of masterwork would you compare Twilight to just to get Jenny fucking mad at you? How about that? Fuck. All right. Jeez. That's some bullshit.
So, Yvonne, I remember speculating that Keller was Dark Summer, and I definitely think she's from a dark court, the whole like torturer thing. I mean, all fairies are torturers, but not as their job description or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it feels like, yeah, they're from a dark court. I don't know about Summer or Spring. I don't know much about Dark Spring, / I don't remember anything about Dark Spring, but maybe it's that. Talking about Keller and how he like gives shit out to all the like groups, the like role-playing kid group is really fun. The fact that it's a non-magical book is interesting, but I feel like the stories are gonna somehow fuck with everything, which is really fun.
Yeah.
Playing D&D based on a fairy book sounds like a great time.
That does sound like a great time.
And then yeah, the pickpocketing thing for the French kid, and the advice on diets and fashion and shit for the drama kid. It's gonna be a time.
It's gonna be a time. I just have to say, Malia, I'm sorry. I'll try to drop this after this, but I'm gonna tell Vitalis what you said about Lord of the Rings. Okay, I'm gonna tell him.
Okay,
I'm gonna tell him.
I bet he hasn't seen Twilight, so
he's seen enough. He's seen enough to know.
Okay.
And just think about how this is, this is something
Vitalis
that
doesn't
you
like
put
read
in the world.
fantasy. He's not like
No,
an expert.
No, of course. Yeah, of course not. But you don't have to be a fucking expert in fantasy to know that that's some bullshit statement right there.
Okay.
He actually likes Lord of the Rings.
I'm very happy about that.
Me too.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm gonna be like, guess what Malia fucking said about Lord of the Rings and Twilight. Fuck. All right.
Okay. Yeah, so there's a thing about exiled fairy and how they're not normally allowed to go after innocents, and like, can normal fairy normally go after innocents directly?
Well, they steal kids and shit.
That's true. Yeah, the lines between what is acceptable fucking with an innocent and what isn't are interesting. I guess part of it is like, how likely are you to get caught?
Yeah.
Seems to be the big line.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then Elspeth walks up and sits down. She's described as wearing a hat with flaps over the ears, and at first I was like, it's a Garrick, and then I was like, it's not a Garrick. It's definitely not a Garrick. Yeah, and so then they start talking about, so it's one thing that was kind of funny was they talk about Patrick for like, a while, and Maggie even is like, yeah, Patrick's been talking to me and a couple other people, and then when Patrick turns around and like looks at Maggie and like walks off or whatever, she's like, wait, did he look at you? And I'm like, bitch, yes? Like, what? This was what? Anyway, she's a little dense, but it's okay. The whole he slept with a guy and ended a relationship, and then the girlfriend was pregnant and all that does sound like a teen drama in a fun way. Definitely. I also think it's interesting here that like Maggie is thinking about basically the Winter Court without saying it. That, all Faerie are running from stagnation and boredom.
Mm-hmm. Do you think this is kind of random, but like, do you think it's interesting that like they write in here the name Patrick, but then they write Podrick
like
as
other
well?
Times?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's that thing where she talks about how like Podrick is a face he uses like for her, probably trying to help her think that she's like special, and he's showing her some like truer side or something. But it feels like most of the chapter he's Patrick.
Yeah.
For chapters. Yeah.
Okay.
Part of it is like useful for me as a person who's talking about this, but I don't think that that's the reason why Waldo would do that.
Sure.
Yeah. And then so Maggie starts thinking about the nature of Jacob's Bell and how the people on top are happy to let innocents get fucked, and other people get fucked by the Faerie and these goblins and the boogeymen and whoever, because the person who can see is the king of the blind or whatever. Like, if everyone else is worse off and you're the same, then you're better off than everyone else. And that sucks. And these people are bad. I also wonder a little bit about the state of this place. I mean, presumably judges are in power over them. I wonder if it's I don't know how close this is to Kennet or whatever, but potentially it's, the Alabaster Doe and the Carmine Beast and all that, which is fun. But it seems to be in this weird in-between state of like, it basically is about to have a lord, but it doesn't. Yeah, which is interesting.
That's pretty weird.
Yeah.
Next part, if you're cool with that. While going back home and eating dinner, she accidentally reminds her dad's of that battle prophecy. Dinner ends early because the food's kind of terrible as well as the prophecy. She checks on Buttsack. He's doing great, as you know. And she sees an email from Blake about Toronto. She feels really guilty, but decides that she needs to take the contract.
Yeah, this meal sounds really bad.
Yeah, they went ahead and just fucked it up, and were like, well, let's just keep trying. And they fucked up another part and were like, well, this cost money, so let's keep it going. And then the other parent was like, well, I don't want to hurt their feelings, so I'm just gonna try to eat this. And that's how that happens, being cheap and not wanting to hurt feelings.
That's
and
fair.
Being like, this is healthy.
Yeah. Part of me was like, the undercooked potatoes, like, put them back in, but I mean, they probably like had the potatoes and the asparagus in at the same time, which is why one was cooked too long and the other was cooked too short.
Rookie mistake, guys. Rookie mistake.
I don't know. Yeah. I like that in this section, I don't remember who her father is and who her dad is. And it doesn't matter. I also am a little confused because, so I thought Maggie's life situation was that her mom and her dad, one of them were married and had Maggie, and then they split up or whatever, but like amicably, and he gets with dad or father or whatever, and then she lives with the dads. And so one of them is her bio dad and one of them is not. But then at the end of it, she's like, oh, she'd just straight up been adopted, so there wasn't a blood connection. And I'm like, that's not what I understood from earlier. But also makes sense, like, but because I mean, there was a whole thing about, like her dad and then her dad's husband, and then eventually she was like calling him dad again or whatever. And that was a big thing. But
that's right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I thought that there was kind of thought along the same lines as you, I think. Let me just make sure here. Because I still think it was around the same thing. I thought it was in the histories thing, but I wasn't seeing it in there.
Yeah, I did too.
I know that I could do the search thing, but sorry, cut all that silence and all that junk out. But basically, I think that you're right. But I don't know, for some reason, whatever. Who cares? Let's move on.
Yes. Okay. One note is that, I mean, dad and father are just such different tones. Like, I feel like if I had two dads or whatever, I'd want it to be like dad and like pop or something, like both just more casual as opposed to dad and father. Like, if I had two moms, I'd, mom and mama, or mom and mommy is weird. Probably mom and mama. But yeah. Yeah, so she goes up to mess with and talk to Buttsack. I always want to say butt munch. So I have to stop myself every time. And yeah. So we're like, messing with him. The fact that the runes that mean metal can constrain a goblin is really interesting and kind of cool. And I don't know if the Kenneteers have ever done something like that. Can't quite recall. Like using a rune to substitute for the thing itself in that way. I don't know. But yeah, she gets Blake's message, and he's like, I have my hands on something that's not small potatoes. Kind of implying that maybe she could have it, or at least help him out with it, or whatever. But she's like, I need this power, I need this whatever. You might not be coming back. Like, I can't do this.
Sure.
And yeah. She also thinks to herself, oh, does he have a moderate goblin? And I feel like the hyena is probably more than a moderate goblin. But again, lines and categories are hard. Like Blunt feels like a moderate goblin to me. Whereas like the hyena is like way more than Blunt Punch.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like Buttsack feels kind of close to being moderate, but maybe I don't think I've seen the extreme end at all. So yeah. I was surprised that she was like, no, because I know what happens, but then I didn't know what happened. So
yeah.
Thrilling.
I was looking at your note and about fast and healthy. What's sweet green?
Sweet green. Salads.
Salads.
And they probably have like rice bowls and shit, but I really like what's my favorite? It's called like the Green Goddess salad or something. They have them in Austin and other cities probably, so I don't know if they have one near you, but I like the Super Green Goddess, and I like to add goat cheese to it. So it's like lentils, chickpeas, sweet potatoes, raw carrots, raw beets, which at first I was like, what is this? And it was like great.
Fucking love raw beets. It's delicious.
So I don't know if I'd had raw beets before the salad, but really? I love beets, and I was very excited. It's really great.
Nope, they don't have any near me. I love goat cheese. Vitalis literally gags every time he has goat cheese.
It's so good.
Yeah, I don't know. Goat cheese is like the fucking devil's, yeah. I was going to say something more impolite, but yeah, he doesn't like it.
I hate
he
that.
Literally gags. But anyway.
Yeah. Sweet green. They should get a sweet green. Except this place sounds really great, so.
It does. Sounds delicious. Sounds like somewhere Vitalis would like. And on that note, her dad's offered to take her to her favorite restaurant, which is very potato heavy, it sounds like. I don't know how healthy that is, but hey, I haven't had poutine in a long time. She goes and sees Padrick, whatever. I know that everyone's wincing every time I mispronounce it, but it's fine. Padrick. Probably Padrick. Now that I think about it. He wants her to help Blake in Toronto because it's more interesting. He ends up offering her a ton of power in exchange. She falls for the trick that he has set, and he takes her name and basically takes all the power and stuff for himself. Her dads don't recognize her, and now she's just the girl in the checkered scarf.
It's so awful.
But let's start with the poutine.
Poutine! Oh my god. I love poutine so much. I googled chipped chicken because I was like, what the fuck? I think it's chicken that's like breaded and or fried or whatever. But the breading, because she got chipped chicken with poutine, and the breading, the breading is potato chips.
Because I feel like if I think of chipped beef, that's a very different thing.
Does chipped beef have potato chips?
No. Did you Google chip or chipped chicken?
Chipped.
Okay, because I'm Googling chipped chicken and I don't see anything about potato chips. It seems more like, what is it? Kind of like shredded chicken almost.
Oh, maybe,
It's like chipped beef.
I've also never heard of chipped beef.
You've never heard of chipped beef?
No.
I don't know if you're missing
that
much.
Would probably make more sense for it to be on poutine.
So chipped beef.
Chipped beef is creamy.
Yeah, chipped beef is beef that has been partially dried, salt cured, and thinly sliced. And so I don't know if that's the kind of chicken they made, but maybe, yeah. It's probably good on fries.
I wonder why chipped chicken recipe has a bunch of breaded chicken with potato chips. That's what comes up.
Probably because that sounds better than dried salted chicken. Maybe. I don't know. Anyway.
But in poutine. It sounds great. And the milkshake sounds amazing. I was really hungry when I was writing these notes, and I was just like dying. But then I ate. It's interesting that this town has a desolate downtown area where a lot of things are closed. Like Kennet, because I picture Jacob's Bell and Kennet to be kind of different, but maybe not. I don't know if it's the name or whatever, but I picture Jacob's Bell as a little bit like cuter, and Kennet is just like depressing. Just really unfair.
If your town is more depressing than a town where like a Diabolus house is like, in the center of everything, that's really, really fucking dire,
Yeah, that's true. That house. But yeah, I wish she like communicated with her dads better in this section and sort of explained like, this is what's happening. I kind of feel like maybe if they hadn't left, he wouldn't have been able to do this or something. Like people standing there watching this happen maybe wouldn't have worked. I don't know. They also, probably would have been like, we don't want you to go to Toronto.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just sucks so bad.
It does suck.
It seems like those pigeons that were weird, like arcs and arcs ago, were the Briar Girls. I think I thought they were the Duchamps. But that's cool.
Yeah.
At least I'm guessing that's what it was. But yeah, so Patrick is like, yeah, Mr. Thorburn is going to perish if he doesn't get help at the right place and the right time. There's a whole bunch of places where he almost dies. But, he does get eaten. And like, was Maggie and not I'm calling her Paggy. Like, was Maggie and not Paggy supposed to be there at the splinter? Would that have helped? I don't know. I mean, it was fated or whatever, so maybe it just, I don't know. It sucks. I'm also wondering who he's talking about. He's like one of the more powerful and respected beings in the area, like some entity with the experience of lordship. I kind of feel like he's talking about himself, because he literally put Maggie Holt in the same place as himself. Or somebody who used to be a lord of something and something. But I kind of think he's talking about himself.
Okay.
Yeah. God, and then he's like, maybe I'd be your familiar and it'd be totally subordinate and blah 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 blah. But then he's like, psych. Because rereading it every time he says you versus every time he says Maggie Holt is just so painful. And I mean, fairy talk, strange, but I wish she had picked up on that. I wish.
Well, she's desperate. It makes it a little harder to read things, really,
I know. Like, no, I totally didn't realize what was happening until he held up the piece of paper with her name on it. Like, it was just so awful. And like, yeah, chilling.
It's fucking horror.
Then, yeah. And like, she herself is gonna get so fucked. Not having a name, and I'm so worried about her. And I feel like maybe she's gonna fix it, but also,
yeah.
I think it's cool that the girl with the checkered scarf can swear. Again, what the fuck did Maggie do? Like, it's funny how, later it's Patrick who doesn't know the bounds of the swearing rule, or Paggy.
Paggy.
Yep, that's how we're gonna distinguish Paggy and the girl with the checkered scarf. But yeah, so then your whole mind flashes back to all the things that Maggie's done the past like 2 arcs, and you're like, holy fuck. What a ride. In some ways, I think it was more useful to have a fairy fighting shit in the streets than Maggie would have been. I don't know. I mean, maybe she's good at it, but...
Well, I mean, Maggie wouldn't have gone, but yeah.
Well, no, she had to consider going.
She had to consider going, but...
Right.
She probably wouldn't have gone.
Right. God, and then they don't know their daughter. It sucks that their daughter doesn't win out over Maggie Holt, and then she just leaves, and bleh.
Yeah, that's fucking tragic. Well, we're at our pale in comparison section.
Yeah.
Should we talk about like fairies?
Yeah.
Or yeah.
The Kenneters are pretty well protected.
I
mean, Big G seems to largely have their best interests at heart, and Mariska promised to not stop them from living full and complete lives or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, Mariska had some tricks, but like compared to what it could have been.
Right. And people were like freaking out about, Avery going to see Pam as a boy and like all these things. And like, I was like, yeah, this could be bad. But if you read this story, like, of course, anything that the fairy does that you don't anticipate would like freak you out, right? Like,
yeah.
Whereas with us, yeah, like they just have a bunch of cool glamour. I mean, Shelley was kind of scary. The Daniel stuff was weird. But they have Olive Kennett, they have Big G. I want to see Estrella and Big G interact. That'd be fun. But yeah, they just
like
fairly sheltered.
They are. It's also really horrifying about it. I don't know, I'm blanking on his name right now. But this whole thing that happened to Maggie, like it kind of reminds me of what what's his name? You'll tell me in a minute. Like one of the people that Rose summoned that fucks with like switches connections and shit.
Oh, Corvidae.
Kind of reminds me of something that he could do in a way. Doesn't it?
Hey, we found a demon adjacent person adjacent fairy.
Woo! There you go.
But yeah,
But the thing is, like, Malia, and I don't know, this is something that a lot of people seem to do, and I feel like a lot of people tend to say things like, oh, yeah, it's the demon adjacent fairy because the fairy did something really bad, or, oh, the hyena was basically a demon because, like, it did stuff really bad. I feel like that kind of cheapens demons. Because that's saying that, like, these creatures, like, or others on their own couldn't do something that bad unless there's a demon involved, And I'm like, well, I think things can just be really fucking horrifying. And I think that demons can be a lot fucking worse than that. And Corvidae's not a demon.
Right.
Either, So that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, this is very in lines of the whole don't go to a Fae's house and eat anything or whatever. Like those those stories. And they're definitely, fairy and not demons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate the callback that you did. So
yeah. Oh, the story.
All right. I'm gonna move on to your bold and specific prediction because you just wrote the girl in the checkered scarf, and I want to know how that sentence ends.
I was trying to decide if it was like will disappear from the story, or if it was like will have her revenge on Patrick, or if it was like will meet up with Rose and ask for help. I don't think she's gone from the story.
Okay.
I didn't go back and read the section because like are the blood and darkness shit following Maggie Holt? Or are they following her? And I don't remember. But if they're following her, she's definitely not gone. And I want Maggie, I mean, like, everything in Pact goes from bad to worse or whatever, but I want Maggie Holt I want the girl in the checkered scarf to succeed and to come back and to be herself again. So I'm going to say that she will do it.
Okay. Do you think there's a danger of her disappearing?
Yeah, I think there's a danger of her
self. Oh, sorry. So you wrote the girl in the checkered scarf will become Maggie Holt again.
I think so.
Okay.
I'm gonna will it into existence. So you think she's gonna
get her name back?
Yeah, I'm gonna will it into existence.
Okay. Do you think if she's unable to get her name Maggie Holt, what do you think will happen?
So I think that she would like completely lose herself. And I don't know. I think that like she could become very easily possessed by spirits and things if that happens.
Okay.
And so maybe something else will take over her, or she'll manage to construct some sort of identity. I don't know if you just sort of start calling yourself like, Brittany or whatever, if that would help. But
okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to make a secondary prediction just in case she doesn't get Maggie Holt, or no?
Sure. She's
gonna be a Brittany bitch.
It's Brittany. She will become possessed by spirits and I have a weird thought.
Okay. Weird thoughts are usually good, or at least entertaining.
I don't know that this will at all happen, but yeah, okay, so if she can't get Maggie Holt, she's gonna go to Molly's Echo and try to get Molly's Echo to possess her.
That's a fun prediction.
And become Molly Walker.
That's really fun. Okay, I like it.
Yep.
You better write that shit down.
What sort of ghost do we have around? There's the ghost. I found her.
You really should write that down.
Okay.
I like it. All right, that's a really good question. So we're recording this a little bit early because I'm on call this weekend and I can't really take up 2 hours to record if I have to go in for a call. So at this moment in time, we do not have any answers for our discussion question, which was pick a character from Pact or Pale and what tarot, I don't know how to pronounce words. Tarot makes me think of a taro plant, like eating taro. But what tarot card matches them? We may or may not get answers. I don't know anything about tarot cards besides like what these stories have told me, and what I've retained from them. So not a lot, but
yeah. I was thinking, just have something more interesting here in case no one does answer. If I ever like get decent at drawing or whatever, I would like to design some Otherverse themed tarot cards that I think could be really fun. And I think like making them truly Otherversey and throwing in like a Page of Suns and shit like that could be fun. But like I was trying to think of what the Kenneteers would be. And I think that I'd put Lucy as Justice. I think I'd put Avery as the Chariot. I think I'd put Snowdrop as the Hanged One or the Hanged Man.
Why is that?
Possums hang from things. It's not that good. But she was also supposed to be a sacrifice.
That's true. Okay.
Maybe like an inverted Hanged One. And I think I'd make Verona the Magician.
Okay. I would also say if you make Avery the Chariot, Snowdrop needs to be riding in the chariot.
That's true. Yeah. I feel like Cherry Pop would be a good fool. But also if it was an Otherverse tarot deck, it would be Blake, obviously.
That's true. It would have to be Blake.
Yeah. And Rose would probably have to be the High Priestess. But
that's true. All right. New discussion question.
Lord of the Rings is to Twilight
as fuck you.
Blank is to blank. Lord of the Rings is to blank as Twilight is to blank.
Fine.
Yay!
Fine. You bastard.
I mean, you can make it things that aren't Twilight.
Or you could or like what Lord of the Rings is to Twilight, like blank is to blank. If you're trying to compare those directly, which really drive me fucking nuts. Do something like that with Twilight and Lord of the Rings in it, or something that's just gonna piss me off because
just
it's
respond to our
respond. Just respond. Tell us your thoughts.
Tell us something else that makes you this upset, and or tell us a hot take.
Tell us a hot take on stuff. Okay. Well, on that note, fuck you, and thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe, share it with your friends, and leave a rating and review. To help support our podcast, go to patreon.com/doofmedia. If you'd like to support Wildbow as he continues to write fantastic stories, go to patreon.com/wildbow.
You can follow the pod on Twitter @PaleComparison or send us an email at paleincomparisonpod@gmail.com. Keep an eye out for our Reddit thread in r/parahumans, where you can answer our discussion question and share your thoughts on this episode. In addition, if you would like to see all of my predictions laid out, check out our episode description for a link to a prediction tracker. Next episode, we will be covering chapters 8.3, 8.4, and 8.5. And Jenny did that thing again where I thought we were going to do 2 chapters, and I just read 3 chapters, and now I'm afraid.
I gotta mix it up sometimes. Gotta mix it up. And frankly, we're recording this on Thursday, so it gives you extra time to read.
Yay.
Make sure to watch you can watch, I guess. It makes more sense to listen to a podcast, I guess. Make sure to listen to our other Doof podcasts, like the Doofcast. And I haven't listened to the Doofcast in a while, but you never know. Maybe Malia will be on and we'll convince Scott and Matt to watch fucking Twilight, and we'll make that same hot take. See what they have to fucking say about that.
That'd be fun.
What do you think they have to say about that shit?
Yeah. I have no idea. They are doing a deconstructing series called Deconstructing Scott, and even though I listened to all their series where they were talking about the director they were going to be doing, I thought that they were doing some weird spoof thing where they were going to rag on Scott. Yeah. But I think it's Ridley Scott. So they're going to do Alien and Gladiator and all those lovely movies. Apparently, I think they're going to do all of them, which is nuts.
Damn, that's a lot of movies. That's pretty cool. All right. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that Scott is not getting deconstructed. Because, we like him fully constructed, Scott. It's always good. But yeah, give that a listen. Yes. All right. This week's fun fact, research. I'm not going to lie, I didn't have time to look up the actual research, Jetty, but the article said research. I'm going with it. Research has shown that dogs actually prefer when we speak in higher tones, higher pitch. So they actually like baby talk. So go ahead and keep on speaking baby talk to your dogs, because apparently they like it better anyway.
Well, so I always used to speak to babies and other children with a very flat affect, like they were adults, because I thought it was sort of funny, and I thought I don't know, they're just people. But then when you had Miko, you were like, no, he actually responds more when I talk this way. And so I started doing it, and it kind of works for Miko, but I think it works for my cat. I'm not actually positive, but I think she knows when we're talking to and or about her, because we start kind of speaking in baby talk, and so I do it all the time.
Yeah. Funny how that stuff works. I mean, maybe it's just they find it annoying, but dogs like it. Miko's, he's kind of old now for baby talk, but Lily likes it. So yeah, funny how that works. Yeah. All right. Have a good week, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.